Hello and welcome to this episode of Self-Made. I'm your host, Dee Brown, CEO. Joining me on the show today is the founder and CEO of the Black Professional Network. Please help me welcome Kenasha Paul. Kenasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dee Brown. Appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. So Kenasha, I want to get started by informing my viewers about your early years. So can you give us some information on where did you grow up and what your childhood was like?
So I had the fortunate pleasure of being born and raised in Miami, Florida. I know I'm a native. My family is of Haitian descent, and I grew up pretty much I want to say I was fortunate to grow up in a very traditional household. My father is a reverend, and my mom is a nurse. And she spent most of my time here in Miami, Florida, in the North Miami area with my older brother, my older sister, who unfortunately passed away, and my younger sister. And so my upbringing, like for anyone who knows, like living in an immigrant household, it was very strict. And so I only had to go to school, church, and home. So those were the three places that I can go to. But I think it served me well as far as, pushing back on getting a lot of my early experience to help the community and being able to having a real, heart for service. I think it allowed some of the pushback that I did with my parents to make it a win-win for us both, for us all.
So talk to me about your childhood and what are some of the challenges you were faced with and that you had to overcome?
So for me, and I think I shared this, I rarely share this actually, is that, so I have my older sister who had passed away. She was born with a rare disease called Rett syndrome. And it's something that only impacts girls. It's a genetic disease. It's not preventative. And it's a rare mutation that forms in the body. And so when she's older than me, and when she was born, the doctors told our family that, and I grew up to know that she would only live to be about 12 or 13. So I was supposed to have we were about 5 years apart. So I was going to have a very small window with her when I came around. But she lived to be actually up until 23. And so I feel like my childhood with her taught me like just to be appreciative so much about, life. Like Debbie, if anyone who knows her, even though the disease, it basically makes you regress. So you're born with, all the functioning, looking like a healthy baby.
Yeah.
But over time, like your body regress, and then you become basically handicapped. So you lose functions of your arms, your legs, your speaking, and then you end up having to be in a wheelchair. And so you lose a lot of your mental, and she had an aggressive form of the disease. So she went from basically being an upright, walking, talking, individual to basically becoming a handicapped person with very limited motor and vocal skills. But, growing up with her, she never lost her spirit. It just for me, it was just it was always so, it's just impressive to me. Of just it's like, if she loved you, you knew she loved you. And if she didn't like you, you also knew she didn't like you. It's just and just how much of she just taught me so much about spirit you can feel, even when you can't talk, you can't walk, and you're losing a lot of your cognitive skills.
Yeah.
You can feel spirit. And I feel like growing up with her, it's she just gave me so much appreciation for, being good to others, appreciating every day, finding joy even in the midst of challenges.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what my parents, and it's like we never took it as like we were burdened with like having like, because there's so much things that you can't do. There's certain arrangements you have to make in the household to be able to sustain a child like that.
Yeah.
There's limitations on schooling and even what you can do and how like reasons why you have to come home at a certain time to make sure that she's taken care of. But it's just like it was more of just like an experience for us to learn, just kind of like just like to honor life. Everything happens for a reason, and to really appreciate each day.
Right. I mean, that's wow, that's an amazing journey that you've been on. Do you recall the day that your sister passed away? What do you remember about that?
So actually, it was very. So I do remember it because it was an abnormal day for me. So for me, I normally like by then I was in undergrad, so I was at FIU. I was a freshman in college, and by then I was like a super active, involved student. So I was like in different clubs. I was in student government, just you name it. But then, and it's so interesting. I always know like God moves in very like it's mysterious, but it's kind of like we kind of know, like in a bigger picture when we're looking at hindsight.
Yeah.
Like I just kind of got it in for me to like stay home that day. It was just like, I had like probably a bunch of meetings, class, but something was just like, you know what? I just wanted to kick it with her. She wasn't feeling well up that week, and I just was like, I'm not gonna go onto campus that day. I'm just gonna stay. And that she had caught because the disease you get if you do get sick,
Yeah.
it does take a hard toll on your body. So she was already battling pneumonia, and then she lost that battle. But so I was there with her, like, so having to call my parents, let them know like, hey, she's taking a turn. We had to get the ambulance come. And wow, it's like I look back and I always am like, a little misty eyed about that time. Um but it still was like most people would say like it's a very traumatic experience. But for me, it was just like, I don't know, it's almost like in a weird way, because like she has this like a special made bed, and I would lay there with her and watch TV with her. And I feel like if I think even closer, like she kind of like was the reason I stayed, because I felt like she was being fussy. She didn't want me to go that day.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I feel like it was a gift more than anything that she told me, like, for me to be there. And like, so like I didn't have to come home and hear the news, that I was able to like, be there with her.
Yeah.
And, like you just make the experience feel like less scary.
Right. So did that moment did that impact your life? How did it impact you? Just having to
Yeah,
be there and yeah.
I think anytime you witness anyone pass with you, or you lose a sibling, or you lose a child, like, it's always going to be hard to, because you get so used to your life
Right.
being structured a certain way, and you get used to them just being there. Like it's almost like it's like the same way that you couldn't even imagine not having a certain body part. Like it's part of you.
Yeah.
Um, but I think because of just like us always having a very like strong, being so centered in like in our faith, and being very centered on just, like nothing really kind of like bad happens to us. It's like things happen for us. Things help us have a better perspective of life, have a better appreciation for, our roles. I think if anything, it just strengthened my commitment to kind of like really, make the most of each day.
Yeah.
Like to make sure that things that she couldn't do, that I don't take for granted, and that the same way that she had like she loves babies, like even though she gets like, there's so much spirit in her. When I think about her, is there's so much things like people, and you could tell like when we would wheel her to like service projects, it's like how she would take all that in. And so just kind of like still making sure that we just keep doing that work.
Yeah. So your sister's spirit, uh, did that impact how you, I guess, connect with the community and other things that you do? Does that influence what you do going forward now in your life?
I think for the biggest thing that I feel like Debbie leaves with me constantly, and when it comes to the work that I do, is not taking. So I think the biggest thing about, like, I know people say that it's like, when you lose someone, you get more appreciative of life. But
Yeah.
I think he helped me also understand like how important it is to have vision. And if you are a person who is able to live out your vision, like that's two different things. Because you have people who are they want to like work, go home, like, live a very just, normal everyday life.
Yeah.
And I feel like with her, like, I feel like she reminded me of like that here you have this ability to like create a life, like, and to create it, like, don't let life happen to you,
Yeah.
and like make life happen. And so that is kind of like the same principle I put in the organization of just like we've been narrowed down on like that our organization is focused on visionary black professionals who have a vision for their life, that there is more than just I have a career or I'm an entrepreneur. I want to create generational impact, or I want to create generational wealth for someone besides me, something besides myself that I can live for. And I think that spirit is what I feel is really fuels me when I think about, because when I think about all the work that I do, is always centered on it has to be more than just like, okay, we're gathered, or
Yeah.
we're networking, or we're here to get the bag or make the money, and or flex on the gram or whatever that we're doing in different
Right.
ways to show that we're living. But it's like, what are we going to do that someone can feel our legacy, can feel our impact, can feel our spirit, can feel our presence. And so I think carrying that with me, I think people can, when they're in part of the org, they see that for us as there's a lot of professional organizations. What's different about our org is just that we really want to help you along that way, along that journey, guide you, connect you to the people, connect you to the resources that can help you truly live out a vision.
So talk to me about Black Professional Network. How did that idea get birthed? What led you to that vision and to pursue that dream?
So it was actually my last year of law school. I was at Nova, and I just noticed like while I was always a big networker, well, even in undergrad, but I noticed amongst my peers, especially the ones who didn't look like me, that they could call someone up. They had connections that allowed them to open up to opportunities. And I saw for us, our community, we relied on the tools of the system. So like applying to the jobs, or, like having to, work the process. And I saw that they played the game a little differently. And I was just like, there's no reason why our community can't do the same. And knowing that how important and impactful social capital is to everything. The saying is not what you know, but who you know. And I felt like
Right.
in our community, because this historical, we needed both. So we did need to know the what, because there is a game that you need to there is a game assistant that you need to understand to truly become what we call certified legacy builder status. But there is the people like within your community, to your left and to the right of you, that you need to build with, that can help you shape that vision, that can help you hit certain milestones along that way. And that we need to learn to value that both of those spectrums. And so I feel like the organization was birthed from understanding it is the who. Like we need the relationships, we need the connections. They help us get access to opportunities. They help us open up, tap into other people's networks and other people's knowledge banks. But we also need to understand fully, kind of like, if we want to reach this grand vision for our life that we probably haven't seen from our families, or we haven't seen before, we have to learn what that looks like and how to, move in that way.
So what type of business that you are working with in your organization, and what type of services are you providing them? Obviously, it seems that you're networking and creating the social infrastructure for these companies.
Well, so we looked at it from two angles. So we don't have, we're not niche in the sense that it's only corporate professionals or business professionals. Mainly, though, what we see in our network is that they are traditional roles that come from like the business verticals. So like the lawyers, the doctors, the accountants, a lot of professional service providers. As tech professionals, and so what we provide is in the grand scheme. So we have our monthly networking mixers that are in 3 cities. So we are in Miami, which and Broward, Chicago, and Los Angeles. And so they host their monthly mixers for the community. Now there is the membership component where our members get a more tailored quarterly workshops, member experiences that helps them fine tune like their vision planning, identifies how to leverage relationships in order to guide them across like what their goals are. Then we have our next steps mentoring, which serves as I think it's like a bridge point for the professionals to close the gap for what we think of when I was doing this work, realizing that there is a gap once you leave college that you don't get often the proficiency to navigate from degree to industry. So our Next Steps Mentoring program assists that and gives an opportunity for the professionals to be able to pass their knowledge to a younger set, and so that we can create the early on the knowledge bank as early as possible. And then we have our annual conference that we host that serves kind of as like the culmination point. It's like the peak of all the things that we're doing, from master classes to networking mixers to membership events, and then different special events that we do throughout the year. And then the conference serves kind of as that culmination point.
Wow, so you're doing a lot to help people that are operating various types of businesses. And I tell people all the time that, I'm in the relationship business as an entrepreneur. I don't really pursue opportunities where I don't have a pathway to establish a relationship with the person on the other end of the transaction. And so with that being said, what are some of the success stories that you're most proud of with your company?
There's so many actually. It's different verticals. So we've had founders who have been able to have met their early stage investors into their company to allow them to scale. We've had professionals who have been able to reach certain milestones, not only in like the earning income that they wanted to achieve, but also like in the professional leadership title. We've had professionals who have fine-tuned their leadership skills because that's a big component for the org. If like we know that, especially since majority of our professionals would be considered millennial Gen X. We look at it as that we're the next to lead. And so we need to think about what does that leadership mean as we assume those roles, and how do we want to reshape corporate culture. And then sometimes as even something as small as, well, it's not small because I always look at anytime this legacy building is impactful. We've even connected like relationships together, like where people have gotten married because of the network, and that's part of their legacy building goals as well.
So why do you think legacy building is so important?
Legacy building is important because I feel like it's how the society is made. I feel like when you think about how this country, I'm a history major. So when I think about how this country was formed, there are people, they call them like the early settlers or early frontiers, but regardless, they had a legacy, a vision for how they wanted this country to be shaped. They had a vision for their families. When you think of people called like the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, all of them had a vision for their life and their families. And we think that, and these things, we think that a lot of times I feel like we undervalue, and we think that these things happen by chance, but it's very intentional and strategic. And I want for our community to apply that same principle, that we can be the next Rockefellers, the next Kennedys, but then we could do it in a way that is not harmful, that doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to have the same remnants and, I guess how to phrase this. It doesn't have the same type of ill effects that we sometimes resent about capitalism and corporate culture, that we find that is more harmful than progressive. Like, we can get into these roles and shape it, and you have to have that mindset to think that you have the power to create the vision and the life and the systems that benefit you.
Well, obviously, legacy building is extremely important, and to me, it's very, very important for myself. Being a father and a husband. But I do want to know from you, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, for me, my legacy, and it's so is I feel like it's something that we just recently shared that on our page, is something that Oprah had mentioned. It's like, our legacy is the people that we impact. Our legacy is the lives that we touch. And I feel like, if I know that because I've created this organization, I have empowered different regions, I've empowered different people to leverage the tools, um, the platform that has been nurtured and created, and for them to be able to really empower and take ownership of them for themselves, that, look, you can do this, it's possible. And I feel like, for me, that would be, job well done. And I know that that too would also be able to, like, my sister would be like, hey, you did good, kid.
So you think about your sister a lot when you're uh, doing business and making decisions and impacting lives.
I feel I remember her in the very key moments. So there's always a season where it hits the hardest. Where
Yeah.
for me, it's where it's like, and it's usually around fall, like, where I'm really thinking of, kind of like, you know, how life would have been different, for her. And then it's what do I need to do to make sure that anytime that I'm feeling ungrateful, or I'm feeling like, I'm not in a spirit of gratitude, to remember what this work really means.
Yep. So the name of this show is Self-Made, and so I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
To you, what does it mean to be self-made?
To create create the life that you envision. I feel like, a lot of people, life can happen to them, and I feel like being self-made is taking life. And even though I do understand that sometimes control is an illusion, but you can create a life and a narrative for yourself that best serves you, and to really have ownership of what does it mean to live life on your terms, and what things will you allow to trigger you, what things will you allow to impact you, what things will you allow to that are disguised as challenges, defeat you,
Yeah.
but really are learning opportunities. So I think being self-made is just really having a very clear vision and definition for your life, and then being able to define it unapologetically.
Right. So I want to know also, you work with so many different individuals and a variety of businesses and occupations. Uh, when a person is trying to develop that clear and concise vision, and they're trying to make that decision to take that step forward and pursue their dreams, what advice would you give them from all of the stories you've learned from working with so many different individuals?
I would say first is to really take time to unpack yourself. Like, really take time to really dissect who you are as a person. Like, I think there's oftentimes there is, and I get it, when we are raised, there are certain instructions that are given to us, but definitely take time to figure out if the instructions that have been downloaded to you truly serve you in the direction that you want to go. So I think I could never repeat enough about how important it is to have self-awareness and really learn yourself. You might hear articles that successful people wake up at 5 a.m., but you might be a night owl, and you might get the best work done being a night owl. Forcing yourself to be something that you're not because that it works for others doesn't serve you, and it's not in alignment to how success should show up for you. And I think understanding yourself clearly and then learning how to leverage what your perceived weaknesses to your perceived weaknesses for your benefit. Like, and then and that's from selecting the right people to this. If you know that you're not good at strategy, then connecting yourself with people who are good at strategy. If you know that you're not really a great salesperson, but a lot of the work that you have to do has to be sales, being able to get those type of people around you. And if you learn that while you've got those people around you, that you're having a struggle in your leadership and managing them, get better at understanding people and being able to lead them effectively in a way that you would want to for someone to be intentional with you. So I feel like in a nutshell, it's self-awareness, leveraging your weakness, and then being mindful of how to sharpen your skill sets to be successful.
Wow, that's a lot, and it's perfectly said. Kenasha, we're about out of time for this episode of Self-Made, but I really appreciate you coming and joining me on the show today, and I hope that you have a successful and long career because you're impacting lives in the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for being on the show. And to my viewers, thank you for watching this episode of Self-Made with Dee Brown, CEO. And remember, without you, there's no me.